Buongiorno! My name is Kristina and I'm the wine educator for Santa Margherita USA, and I want to thank Zanotto and I want to thank you for letting me talk to you today about our wines. Of course, it's a shame that we can't all be together in Italy, but hopefully today I can take you on a tour of Italy through the wine mosaic, the beautiful wines imported by Santa Margherita USA. Of course, you probably know Santa Margherita for our popular Pinot Grigio, but we have so much more to offer. But let's start with a little bit of history. Did you know that Santa Margherita is a family-owned winery? It is. The third and fourth generation of the Marzotto family run the company today, and in fact, the villa you see on the label is of the historical Marzotto family home located in Portoguaro, Italy. Santa Margherita is a family-run company, and at its heart, Santa Margherita is a story of love and respect. I'll be starting with the Prosecco, so if you have that one, go ahead and get it in your glass while I tell you the story of Santa Margherita, because Santa Margherita was a real woman. The winery dates back to 1935 when our founder, Count Gaetano Marzotto, established a multi-purpose agricultural community in the Venetian countryside. And here Gaetano raised dairy cattle, grew grains, vegetables, and fruit, including grapes. And as I like to say, Gaetano was a very, very smart man. He named the winery operations after his wife, Margherita Marzotto. So a love story. But Santa Margherita is also a story of respect because, yes, Gaetano built these farms, but he also built a community for the people who worked the land, including housing and schools and sports facilities. And with the community being so close to the farm, Santa Margherita has been eco-friendly before it was fashionable. And even today, we continue to take truly sustainable choices, including our use of solar power, reductions in our carbon footprint, and using natural products in all of our vineyards. All of our wines are also vegan friendly, as we stopped using animal products in the winery many, many years ago. So like I said, at its heart, Santa Margherita is a story of love and respect. A man's love for his wife and respect for the land and for the people who work the land. Since 1935, the Marzotto family has established and purchased other wineries throughout Italy, and so today we're going to be sampling several of their other family wineries. So that's a little bit of our history. Let's get into the wines. First up, I want to get into the sparkling wines of Santa Margherita. And of course, first of all, did you know Santa Margherita made their first Prosecco in 1952? That's actually a decade before we started making our iconic Pinot Grigio. So we have a very long history of making Prosecco. And so it should be no surprise that we make one of the finest Prosecco Superiore in Italy. In fact, this wine was awarded 92 points by Decanter magazine. Let's quickly look at this region. Prosecco is synonymous with Italian sparkling wine, but you'll notice here that the wine is labeled Prosecco Superiore DOCG. That actually has a very specific meaning. You see, the Prosecco region in Italy is quite large, but look at the label. The G in the DOCG has a very special meaning. Santa Margherita Prosecco Superiore DOCG comes from a much smaller area within the Prosecco region. The Prosecco Superiore region. This is the historic heartland and the most respected area within the Prosecco region. So it's a much smaller area. In fact, only around 17% of all Prosecco can qualify to be Prosecco Superiore DOCG. This is a small area characterized by tall, very steep hills, which means the vineyard work here, including harvest, must be done by hand. The vines do struggle a bit more in the Prosecco Superiore region, and as a result, there's more concentration of vivid flavors in your glass. And what kinds of flavors? What does it taste like? Well, when we look at the glass of Santa Margherita Prosecco Superiore, the first thing you'll notice is the abundance of the fine, lively bubbles. And you probably were expecting me to have a flute, but you can serve our Prosecco Superiore or any of our sparkling wines in a traditional tulip-shaped wine glass. The glass that has a wider bowl and so a greater surface area for the fruity aromas to escape and for you to enjoy. Our Prosecco Superiore is made with 100% Glera grapes, the traditional grape of the Prosecco region. And the bubbles come from the Charmat or the tank method. And in fact, Santa Margherita has horizontal tanks for the second fermentation, which is a design inspired by the champagne method. So the aromas here, really crisp green apple, delicate pear. There's sort of a peachy note, some florals, and a little bit of stony minerality. And then on the palate, ooh, love that. It's a dry wine. Really precise fruit flavors, and you notice it's a little soft and creamy in the middle of your tongue, but then real refreshment from the bubbles that allows those fruit flavors, to linger for a pretty long time. Whether served at the beginning of a beautiful evening for two or sipped throughout a lively meal with friends, our Santa Margherita Prosecco Superiore has a versatility at the table that can be shared time and time again. The elegant mousse here really refreshes your palate for the next bite, and the greater complexity and intensity of the Prosecco Superiore will not get overwhelmed by heavier dishes like, pasta carbonara with shrimp or grilled vegetables drizzled with Italian olive oil and a little Parmesan cheese, or you could even serve this with just, a simply prepared fillet of beef, maybe with a little rosemary. I love rosé wines, and I am old enough to remember when rosé was considered just, a fresh and simple drink. And some still are, but I love that we now have a diversity of styles to choose from. And certainly there is no other country that can offer the diversity of terroirs and grape varieties than Italy. And so allow me to introduce you to Fattoria Sardi and their beautiful rosé from Tuscany. Most people think of Tuscany as a very warm area, and it is, but Fattoria Sardi have dedicated themselves to rosé production due to what their terroir is telling them. Because you see, their vineyards in northwest Tuscany near the ancient town of Lucca are surrounded by two mountain ranges, the Apuan Alps and the Apennines, which create a cool microclimate. There are also two rivers running through the vineyards, and one is called the Fredana, which is referring to its cold water. So that cold water plus the breezes coming off of the mountains helps to keep the temperatures a little more moderate, even though we are in warm Tuscany. So it's a climate really well suited to make rosé wines. The winemakers here, Matteo and Mina Giustiani, who met while studying winemaking at the University of Bordeaux, took over Matteo's family estate in 2012, and their goal was to restore the historic winery and focus on rosé offerings, as well as pursue organic and biodynamic farming and winemaking practices. They've grown to understand what this special region wants to express. The wine here is based on Sangiovese, which is the traditional grape strongly associated with Tuscany. So it's about 75% Sangiovese. And the Sangiovese really contributes, obviously, the rosé color, but also like that red berry fruit, the red cherry fruit expression. So to that, they add 15% Vermentino, which is a very citrus and floral grape. And we're going to talk more about Vermentino when we get into Sassoregale. And then finally, they add about 10% Syrah, which brings more of the pink tone to the wine. Plus, there's a complexity of the plum and sort of black cherry notes to go along with Sangiovese's red berry fruit expression. And what is that expression? So first of all, a beautiful, delicate rosé color. And then on the nose, really clean expression of raspberry. There's dried rose hips and a really pretty, like, honeydew melon. Onto the palate. Very crisp, very flavorful. And I love the balance of that sort of stony minerality and the brightness of fruit here. Rosé wines are becoming more popular as year-round wines, and for very good reasons. Because the wines are generally lighter in body than a red wine, but they have more texture than a white wine. So this kind of in-between profile makes the wines incredibly flexible on the table year-round. So go ahead and be bold with your pairing ideas. The freshness of flavors here pairs elegantly with equally fresh cuisine like antipasti or briny foods like oysters and other seafood. I would love this with grilled shrimp and pasta, maybe with like a light fresh tomato sauce and basil, or like spiced rubbed chicken with maybe like a lemon shallot sauce. But this could equally be at home with, like a grilled pizza with aromatic fennel, prosciutto, and maybe some apples. Now we're moving to the untamed side of Tuscany, the Tuscan Maremma. So we're still in Tuscany, and you're probably more familiar with the Chianti area, but here we're actually closer to the sea in an area called Maremma. This is an unspoiled area in a really nice little neighborhood between Montalcino and Bolgheri, where the warm and dry conditions allow us to produce a robust white wine made from Vermentino. The Maremma is not a very well-known area, and historically, this was the land of the Italian cowboys, the Butteri. This area is very rugged and untamed, even when compared to Chianti. And even today, it's still not a very populated area, nor very industrialized. In fact, it has been named as one of the cleanest spots in terms of air quality in all of Italy. And yes, the boar still runs free in this region, but you're gonna see that boar much more in the cooking rather than guarding our vineyards. So on to the wine. We know Tuscany for red wines, but the most widely planted white grape in the area is Vermentino. Like a bronzed beachgoer, Vermentino loves the sea and thrives along the Mediterranean coastline, including the Maremma in Tuscany. The Vermentino is also found in Sardinia, Liguria, and the grape is even grown along the French coastline, going by the name of Rolle. So Vermentino is very much synonymous with the Mediterranean Sea. Vermentino is quickly becoming one of the more popular Italian white wines in America, and I think it's because of its aromatic, crisp profile, makes it really flexible with many different cuisines. But let's get into the glass. Very strong citrus, and there's like a like dried herb component here, some stony minerality. Onto the palate. Really love that. It's dry and it's got really crisp acidity. It's really mouthwatering, and I think that's one of the reasons for Vermentino's growing popularity. It's actually quite similar to Sauvignon Blanc, right? It's got the crisp acidity, but Vermentino is not as pungent as Sauvignon Blanc can sometimes be. There's a much more elegant expression here, and I love that little like salty tang on the finish of Sassoregale Vermentino. You know, it is sun, wind, and sea very clearly captured in the bottle. By the way, the warm and dry area has allowed us to farm organically, and so Sassoregale has been certified organic in the vineyards since the 2017 vintage. It's a dangerously easy drinking wine. You know, it's bold without being heavy. So it's the kind of white wine that you can, drink on its own or even with that salty finish. It's a natural choice for your next crustacean creation or raw seafood. And then I think the citrus flavors here, that's going to pair wonderfully with flavorful dishes like, oregano dusted seared scallops, maybe with like a smoked chipotle aioli or something. This does well with sushi or even like rich vegetable dishes like Parmesan crusted, slow roasted tomatoes. Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio. This is probably the wine that you're most familiar with, and truly it is a wine of real heritage with a strong reputation for our consistent and delicious quality. So indulge me for a moment, would you? I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to think about a beautiful Italian vineyard. And you're probably picturing, gently rolling hills and cypress trees with maybe the sparkling blue sea off in the distance. But think again, because this wine has nothing to do with that. I think one of Italy's best wine regions and best kept secrets is found in the crisp Alpine region in northern Italy, where apple orchards and vines are clinging to the mountainsides. Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio is from the Alto Adige. This is one of the most stunningly beautiful wine regions in Europe. The area is a patchwork of valleys and mountains with elevations from 600 to 3,300 feet. As a result, the wines from this region are characterized by the cool alpine air that breezes through the vineyards, creating really crisp wines with impeccable purity and an aromatic freshness that reflects this clean mountain air. Of course, Pinot Grigio is one of the most popular white wines in America. This is the same grape as Pinot Gris in France and Oregon, and the Pinot Grigio is believed to be a natural mutation of Pinot Noir. In fact, the Grigio means gray, and the Pinot Grigio grape itself is rather dark. It's not quite a red grape, and it's not quite a white grape, but most commonly it's more of a copper-colored grape. Historically, Italian Pinot Grigio was fermented on these darker colored skins, resulting in savory wines with a deep golden color. Sometimes these savory wines were even used to blend with the red wines of the region. And it was in 1961 that Santa Margherita was among the first Italian wineries to ferment Pinot Grigio without skin contact. So fermenting off the skins enhances the freshness of fruit, bringing out the wine's enormous versatility at the table and creating the iconic wine that we enjoy today. And let's get into that glass. We said earlier that the Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio, which is 100% Pinot Grigio, is from the mountainous Alto Adige in Northeast Italy. And what I love is that you get that sense in the glass. You get that sense of alpine freshness. And I love the intense aromas. It's like golden, delicious apple and citrus. There's a real purity of fruits in here. On the palate, it's a dry wine with really vivid acidity and more of that bright citrus with apple flavors and a really long, layered finish. I think that vivid acidity is one of the reasons why Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio goes with so many different cuisines. I mean, the wine really freshens your palate and gets you ready for the next bite. Clearly, this wine is excellent as an aperitif, drinking on its own. And it's got a medium body here, and I think that's really versatile on the table as well. So this can pair with everything from salads to chicken or grilled fish. One of the best pairings I've ever had with Santa Margherita Pinot Grigio was, it was a salad. It was lettuce with apples and walnuts and pomegranate seeds. But the wine can go really well with, say, pizza topped with prosciutto and arugula. And again, that really fresh acidity can work with, say, scallops with maybe a tarragon cream or tagliatelle pasta with Italian olive oil, lemon zest, pine nuts, things like that. Who is ready for red wine? Me. Did you know that Santa Margherita makes a red wine? No? Okay, you are in for a treat. We are going to look at the Santa Margherita Chianti Classico Riserva. And to start with, this is a single vineyard wine, so there's not a lot of it out there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's get our bearings. So we have left Northeast Italy and the Alto Adige, and now we are talking about wines that are made under the Tuscan sun. Santa Margherita's Chianti Classico Riserva is from a smaller area in the Chianti region because there's Chianti and then there's Chianti Classico, and the Classico has meaning. Classico means that this wine is from the historical heartland and the most respected area in the region. And that is important, and that really, partly helps to explain the excellent quality of this wine. So like I said before, Santa Margherita Chianti Classico Riserva is from a single vineyard called Salcentino in the Greve area of Chianti. It's an area just southeast of the famous village of Penzano in the heart of the Chianti Classico region. You might be familiar with Dario Cecchini, the famous Mad Butcher of Penzano. He's a really colorful guy. He's famous for continuing to eat beef and even holding a funeral for the local bistecca alla Fiorentina during the Mad Cow Scare in the early 2000s. So that bistecca alla Fiorentina, that's a really big, thick T-bone that you find throughout Florence and the rest of Tuscany. It might be easier to picture Tuscany. The vineyards here are on gently rolling hills that benefit from the warm sunshine so essential to the Tuscan holiday. The Sangiovese clones we grow in Santa Margherita's vineyards tend to give very small clusters, which give you a high skin to juice ratio, which means that this is a wine with a very firm structure. So the wine itself is about 90% Sangiovese with 5% each Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot. And the Cabernet and the Merlot here makes for a deeper color and adds a little more richness. So it's a really complex wine. Now the word Riserva in Chianti Classico Riserva also has meaning. In this region, Riserva means 2 years mandatory aging. And in our case, we keep the Sangiovese in sort of the large neutral oak to preserve that core of red cherry fruit, whereas the Cabernet and the Merlot here are aged in new French oak, which gives that really attractive vanilla and spice notes to the wine. It really frames that beautiful red cherry and plum notes here. I love this. It's a very, it's a hedonistic wine. It's dry. There's berry fruits. There's like licorice going on, some toasty notes from the oak, and really structured on the finish. This is going to be perfect with robust dishes like barbecue and grilled meats, or like spicy vegetables with like a jerk sauce or something. I had this last summer with like it was a grilled rosemary chicken thighs with some just cracked green olives. And of course, if it grows together, it goes together. We already talked about the bistecca alla fiorentina, but this would be great with another Tuscan dish like grilled steak panzanella. And it's got a really long finish. I'm still tasting it, by the way. So now we're leaving Tuscany and we're going to the Veneto and to the Campofiorin from Masi. Santa Margherita USA is the proud importer of this historical family winery, which is wonderful because both families have deep Italian roots with a commitment to sustainability and our commitment to the regionality and the styles of their wines. The history of Masi goes back to 1772. Yes, just before America was even a country. So in 1772, the Boscaini family acquired their first vineyard, and this winery is still in that same family today. So the winery has a strong connection to family. The family here has deep roots in the Valpolicella Classico area, and they're well known for their commitment to the indigenous varietals and the ancient process of appassimento. So appassimento is that process of partially drying grapes before fermentation, most famously for Amarone, but the Campofiorin here, which is technically not an Amarone, also uses a little bit of this technique. Campofiorin was first introduced in 1964, and it is the original Super Venetian. You're probably familiar with the term Super Tuscan, which came into use in the 1970s. But here, Sandro Boscaini, the current president and head of the family, he was using the term Super Venetian in their advertising in the 1960s. And because Campofiorin has been around since 1964, you may have heard of it before, and you may be thinking of it as a ripasso style of wine. And actually, Masi doesn't use the ripasso technique anymore. So first of all, ripasso is a technique of the region where they take the pressed skins of Amarone and they add it to a tank of fresh Valpolicella, which causes a small second fermentation. So it adds alcohol and body and extra flavors to a Valpolicella. And so what's interesting here is that the Campofiorin was the original ripasso. But Campofiorin today is made using a double fermentation, or think of it like an extended fermentation. So here, as the grapes are harvested, 75% of those grapes go into the tank and go about a more conventional fermentation, while 25% of the grapes are sent to the fruttai, or to the drying lofts, to be partially dried. So after about 6 weeks or so, those partially dried grapes are then added to the tank of conventional wine. And so a second or a double fermentation starts, with the yeast going after all of the concentrated sugars and nutrients in the partially dried grapes. By using partially dried grapes, we're using the pulp and the skin. So really we're still retaining the freshness of Valpolicella and the integrity of Amarone because we're using partially dried grapes, just like they do in Amarone. I hope you can get the sense that these are truly handcrafted wines, right? So let's get into the glass. Really beautiful nose. You've got that ripe cherry and a little bit of dark raspberry and a little bit of herbaceousness here. Do you notice the depth and the complexity given, the partially dried grapes that are going on? It's a dry wine with really lovely acidity and very plush tannins. There's a lot of red berry and spice going on. With both the vivid, fresh fruit of Valpolicella plus the richness of an Amarone, I love the Campofiorin is obviously a very versatile wine. Again, I'm very happy to drink this on its own, but it kind of has an eclectic personality that can pair brilliantly with Italian-inspired dishes like a bucatini with like a crispy mushroom, maybe in like a light cream sauce, or grilled meats, spiced grilled pork chops with red currant and apple chutney. Blending is a delicate art, and Santa Margherita is proud to share this delicious masterpiece, our sparkling rosé. Santa Margherita has long been recognized as a pioneer in the Italian wine industry. You've learned that we made our first Prosecco in 1952 and our Pinot Grigio. It was in 1961 that Santa Margherita was among the first Italian wineries to ferment Pinot Grigio off of its copper-colored skins, producing that fresh and vibrant wine that we love today. Back to our sparkling rosé. This wine was created several years ago and is a blend of several grape varieties from Northeast Italy. So the base of the wine is Glera, and that's the beautifully aromatic grape that is the base of Prosecco. So Glera is bringing that really intense floral and stone fruit aromas to the glass. To this, we add Chardonnay from Trentino. In any sparkling wine, including our friends to the north in Champagne, Chardonnay brings that bright acidity and precision to a wine. And this is one of the reasons why our sparkling rosé goes so well with so many different cuisines. Between the bubbles and the acidity, the wine is really fresh on the palate, really gets you ready for the next bite. Especially when you have so many, different dishes on the table, the sparkling rosé can really be seamless with all those different flavors and textures. And then finally, when is the last time you had Italian Malbec? Yeah, exactly. So the delicate rosé color comes from just a small addition of Malbec, which is also bringing the richness and some of the red-berried fruit aromas. And it really is a beautiful color. And you know what else is beautiful is the bottle itself. The sparkling wine for both the Prosecco Superiore and the sparkling rosé features the iconic Marzotto family villa that I'm sure you recognize. The bottles also feature the Marzotto family crest, and the Venetian tile design proudly celebrates our Italian heritage and the family's roots in the Veneto. Enough talking. What is it like? So, aromatically, it's different than the Prosecco Superiore, not only because of the red-berried fruit aromas here, but also the apples and pears, the orchard fruits, in addition to the apricot and floral aromas. Onto the palate. It's dry, but with lots of fruits, really vibrant and rather elegant with a really fresh and clean finish. So do you see what I mean by the sparkling rosé can work with a lot of different cuisines? And what kinds of cuisines, you ask? Well, of course, the wine is wonderful on its own, but I think with the fruitiness here, I love this with something soft and creamy, like a goat cheese souffle, or really fresh and lively dishes. Scallops again with roasted garlic and pesto, but there's also enough intensity here to be a foil against spicier dishes. Nothing crazy, but maybe like a slow cooked spicy red chicken curry. Can also work well with some desserts, including some fruit-based desserts. That would be super lovely. Oof, well, I hope that was fun for you too. I hope you enjoyed our wines and enjoyed our little tour of Italy tonight. My name is Kristina Sazama. I'm the wine educator for Santa Margherita USA. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed our tasting and learning about our family of wines today. Cheers!